Great. Yeah, I mean, we're usable actually people to stay up for like
At 9 o'clock, we're like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's time for that. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, my little guy doesn't do too bad. You know, waking up at like 6 a.m. or something. He's not
Not lucky.
It's for school.
School there.
You know, he doesn't have to go to school until like 8:30.
So he sleeps till.
So he sleeps, well, he wakes himself up now about 7 o'clock. So there are days that, which was like.
Okay. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the City of Kingston Historic Landmark Preservation Commission meeting. My name is Suzanne Cahill. I'm the planning director for the City of Kingston. I do want to just go through a couple quick announcements before we begin the meeting. If you have a cell phone, I'm just going to ask that you please silence your cell phone so that it doesn't interfere with the discussion that is going on with the meeting. If you do have any conversations outside of those that are going on with the commission itself, I just ask that you take them out of the room. You can use the council chambers, or you can use the other conference room on the opposite side of the chambers. If you do need to use a restroom, men's and women's are through the council chambers on the opposite side of the building. Men's would be to the left, women's to the right. We are live streaming the meeting and it is being recorded, so I ask that you understand that and respect that. If we do have an emergency for whatever reason, we do ask that you do not use the elevator, please use the stairs. If you need assistance, we will help you from there. With that, I am going to open the meeting at 6:34 p.m. and I am going to turn it over to Chairman Mark Grumblatt to introduce the members of the commission and begin the agenda.
Well, hi, I'm Mark Grumblatt. I'm Chair of Historic Landmark Preservation Commission. I'll ask each member to introduce themselves. I'll start with you, Kevin.
I'm Kevin McAvoy. I'm a commissioner on this board.
Eric Winchell, Commissioner. Robert Tonner, Commissioner.
Andrea Putes, I'm the architect of the commission.
Nanny Morano, Commissioner.
Thank you. Has everyone had a chance to review? Excuse me, staff.
That's okay. I'm Ethan Dickerman. I'm the Historic Preservation Administrator.
I'm Sue Cahill, planning director.
We're all here.
myself.
All right. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes of last month's meeting? Are there any additions, corrections, deletions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Type 2, please.
This is a type 2 minutes?
Yeah,
Wow,
adopting minutes is type 2 action.
that I forgot.
Everything is a secret.
That's a stunner. I don't think we've done that before.
Yeah, I think.
All right, in any event, I will also entertain a motion that this be declared a type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act.
So moved, Robert.
Oh, you're quick. All right. Do I hear a second?
Second, Nanny.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Kevin?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Nettie?
Aye.
I also vote yes. Now, I will entertain a motion that we approve the minutes as submitted.
So moved.
Thank you, Nettie.
Second, Eric.
Thank you, Eric. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Kevin?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
And Nettie?
Aye.
Also me, I say yes. All right, I think at this point I get to accuse myself. Am I correct?
Yes, you just state your reason for recusal.
I have recused consistently on this due to having a property interest in the neighboring property.
I'm also recusing myself. I signed a letter as board member of the Friends of Historic Kingston against the original application.
All right, so we will retreat.
And Kevin, you will be chair.
Okay, I'm Kevin McAvoy. I'm chairing this particular portion of the meeting.
Okay, we're up to 106-122 Green Street, Brookwood, DAR, hardship appeal on an HLPC certificate of appropriateness issued April 3rd, 2025. Section block and lot 48.330-3-19. Secra Type 2, Transect T5N, Kingston Stockade Historic District and Heritage, it's also in Heritage area, and Ward 2. James Bacon Esquire was the applicant for the DAR on the hardship. And what we're going to do here, I believe, the first thing I'm going to do is to review the hardship provisions of the zoning. And I'll read this into the record. An applicant whose certificate of appropriateness for a proposed demolition or alteration that has been denied must first appeal to the HLPC for relief on the grounds of hardship. To prove the existence of hardship, the applicant shall establish that 1, the hardship shall not be self-inflicted. 2, the property is incapable of earning a reasonable return regardless of whether that return represents the most profitable return possible. 3, the property cannot be adapted for any other use, whether by the current owner or by a purchaser that would result in a reasonable return. And 4, efforts to find such a purchaser interested in acquiring the property and preserving it have failed. So I think we'll start the deliberation on the first criteria here. Hardship shall not be self-inflicted. Does anybody have any comments? Floor is open.
So
Well, to
Ethan,
me,
Ethan has up on the screen, the letter of record. This is the updated letter that came in the other day from the attorney representing the DAR. So just want to make sure that you recognize that into the record. And also just a quick note about the process. This is a little bit different than a typical appeal, which would go from a decision of a body, an agency or a board to an Article 78 proceeding. The code follows a different process here where once the COA, which is a certificate of appropriateness, is denied, the applicant can file a hardship appeal back to the HLPC, who was the commission that made the decision to begin with. And that's where you're at now. And depending on what happens with this appeal, if they can appeal your denial of a hardship case, if that's what you do this evening, that will go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. They'll make their determination. If they uphold the commission's opinion through the COA, it then will go to the court. So it takes a little bit different route to the court system than a typical, just a straight Article 78 proceeding would.
Floor is open.
In my opinion, it's very much self-inflicted for a couple of reasons, but they have had a past history of coming to this commission when they needed to get something done. They knew they were in the historic district. So they skipped that step this time. So they're in a position right there that puts them, it's an unfortunate position. Then they went ahead and purchased, I think it was $60,000 worth of windows. I can't help but think it's self-inflicted. It's an unfortunate series of events.
Anyone else?
And they're not exactly like the typical homeowner or layperson who may not understand historic restoration, preservation, but this group certainly should have. Their own guidelines or bylaws or whatever you want to call it for DAR that speak very strongly about restoration as opposed to replacement on many issues. And you can just pull that up on their webpage and they talk about that. So I think they created their own hardship. And I thought that they really just ignored what their part of their creed is of DAR.
Well, I also said in multiple of these meetings where there were great suggestions made to them of possible restores and every month they would come back and nothing would be done. So I think it's terrible that this has happened, but I also think that it is, it's very much their own self-inflicted wound.
I'll also add that there were various grant opportunities for them, including one from the TAR itself, that they didn't take advantage of, so.
To play devil's advocate, maybe this is dangerous territory, but one thing that they had cited when they first approached us is that we had a pamphlet of some sort on our webpage early on that said, if you're replacing something in kind, it does not need to come before this commission. Now, that goes for certain types of repairs, not necessarily for windows. And even if it was a replacement in kind, there's no reason that it wouldn't still come before our board at the discretion of planning and HLPC leadership as a whole. So to say, okay, well, we're replacing this in kind, doesn't really fly, because, and then to go on to potentially purchase these windows, which we know they have at least the one or multiple.
They say all of them.
Right, so just because you've purchased the windows, which you should never do prior to any approvals or do any work prior to any approvals, doesn't mean that you're guaranteed that something is going to be approved. So that very much to me is a self-infliction.
Staff did recognize recently that the commission had never been presented an official bill of sale by the property owners, but that email chain between the property owners and SHPO states 60,000, as well as a sworn affidavit states 63,000. So just wanted to share that.
Yeah, we had seen a quote at least or something, not necessarily the bill of sale, but yeah. And they have the sample window, the exact window that's supposed to go in one of those openings. So yeah, to me, I think the strongest of all of the criteria that would apply to this situation, the hardship shall not be self-inflicted is probably the most prominent.
To your earlier point, Robert, that same affidavit also mentions a very similar price for restoration of the windows.
I think I remember that.
And somewhere in the files exists a letter from Linda Mackey from SHPO, who indicated what you were just saying, that this is a quote, proposed replacement of historic windows is never considered a replacement in kind, even if it is wood with wood.
Well, I think you're the expert, but you also
Yeah.
engaged to
Sure,
do,
maybe.
the work for you, was, the price, the reasonable price was something that they were saying that they couldn't get somebody at a reasonable price. This commission engaged a professional window preservation individual for $250, which is not a significant amount of money. But I think some of the points that were raised in her final report, comparing, the current windows with the proposed windows, and the distinction between the two and what restoration of this versus replacement with this would mean to the structure, the integrity of the structure itself as well.
Well, to further that point, as Karen and also their contractor have both indicated to us that we seem to have some kind of misunderstanding about how these windows are supposed to be installed. They're just pulling out the sashes. Well, to that point exactly, they are not a replacement in kind. If it was a replacement in kind, you would be pulling out the whole frame, everything, to install these windows. So you're making the windows smaller. It's an insert window. That's a technical term that we use in our industry. It's an insert window. They purposely take out just the sashes. You can see it on tons of older structures where they'll replace the sashes with just a vinyl insert. So the old frame still exists, but the sashes are gone. That's the intent of this. So in no way are these historically accurate or meant to be a replacement in kind.
Or an exact replica.
No,
which
yeah,
I've
not-
seen-
no way,
I've
shape,
seen that
or
language somewhere, yeah, no,
Yes.
no, it's not.
They have to have 300-year-old wood to work with.
Your mention of Linda Mackey's letter, I did pull it up. It shows that if an application were submitted and it were awarded for a qualifying organization, which the DAR is 501c3 would have been, they could potentially have received matching funds of up to 50%. And in a qualifying area of high poverty, up to 75%. Grant awards are capped at 500,000.
Yeah, do we have anything further on self-infliction? Hearing none, I guess we'll move on. The next criteria is the property is incapable of earning a reasonable return regardless of whether that return represents the most profitable return possible. I don't believe they've given us any information other than saying it's not applicable. No.
Right, so even though we've seen that this one is not an applicable criteria, it is still required that they provide documentation to support that, and the applicant didn't provide the commission with any information or record to meet this criterion. It's unlikely that they would sell the structure, but, because of their mission, but they failed to present any documentation to support this.
I do think one of I tend to agree with that. I doubt that the DAR would have any reason to want to sell the property or whether it could, represent a profitable return, et cetera, but there is one thing that I think is interesting, which is could the windows that they presently have in their possession be resold? You can't return them, unfortunately, if they're custom built. That's generally not something that's in the cards for custom built windows. You can't restock those. However, they could still be sold to someone else who is looking to create a new structure. I'm not sure if it's the window egress capabilities, so they may not apply in all situations, but they're still viable windows. They could still be used elsewhere. What that actual return, resale amount is, I can't say. I don't have a finger on that pulse. So reasonable return or not, you could still at least get 50% or more on the sale of those individual windows. If anything, you'd get a better return on that than you would have previously when you purchased them, given the cost of everything is just going up and up and up. So,
You ever seen anything like this with anybody else happening where they had to change midstream?
this particular sort of circumstance, not really, because we try to, as much as we can, work with clients to make sure that they don't kind of put the cart before the horse. Go buying things without having a fully fleshed out plan. Too, of course, we do occasionally have clients that will still do what they please. And we wind up having to sort of backtrack with them, but not quite like this.
Well, in the industry as a whole, like outside of your firm, is it something that people do all the time? And, it's not like this thing that happens.
I'm certain that it happens. I doubt that it's oh my God, this is the first time I've ever seen this. I'm certain that it happens, but probably not quite to this scale where it's a full building, a full building's worth of windows.
Next one.
Yeah, unless there's anything else.
The property cannot be adapted for any other use, whether by the current owner or by the purchaser, which would result in a reasonable return. So we have the same reasonable return discussion, I think, under this one. The applicants state that they are not looking for a reasonable return, only to replace the windows with replicas. I think we've already covered whether that constitutes a replica or not.
Yeah, it's a bit of a, I mean, I tend to agree that this one doesn't necessarily apply, but I mean, this structure could easily be adapted for a multitude of other uses.
Sure.
It'd be the cutest, like, bed and breakfast or something like that. It'd be incredible.
An
but
event
that is
center?
not at all the purpose of this,
Yeah.
right? That, I don't think this. Yeah, it could easily be adapted, but again, as we covered in the previous one, this is not sold for that kind of purpose.
Yes, well, what it comes down to is that they didn't provide documentation that it could not
Absolutely.
be
Right,
adapted.
Right.
And that's the criteria that needs to be met.
right.
And
The number of homes that reside in the uptown district that are being adapted for living purposes is
Mhm.
massive.
I think once we have anything further on reasonable returns and adaptive reuses, we're going to move on to efforts to find a purchaser interested in acquiring the property and preserving it have failed. Don't believe they're interested in doing that. We haven't established any record that would indicate that they tried to do that. They merely state that it's not applicable.
They've never said to us that if they can't use these windows, they'll have to sell. They've never said anything like that,
Right.
not that I recall.
now, again, their argument basically is just that they made a basic statement. They are not presenting any documentation.
Right.
So no supporting evidence.
Well, at this point, does anyone have any further comment in terms of deliberation on the four criteria? Sort of. Read the motion?
Yeah, do you want to do the seeker, please?
Yes, we'll entertain a motion to declare this a type 2 action under SECRA.
So moved, Andrea?
Okay, do we have a second?
Second, maybe.
Second. Okay, we'll call the roll on this. Robert,
Aye.
Andrea,
Aye.
Nettie,
Aye.
and I'm also a yes vote on this. Okay. That will bring us to a resolution, and this would be a resolution to deny the hardship application, and will allow them to go forward, moving to the ZBA, the zoning board of appeals. Okay.
I'll measure those findings of fact.
Yeah. This may be a little lengthy.
We can take turns.
Yeah, we can take turns if you like. You don't lose your voice.
Resolution of the Historic Landmarks Preservation Commission of the City of Kingston, New York, denying the hardship appeal by James Bacon Esquire for 106-122 Green Street, Wiltwyck chapter of the National Society of the Daughters of the Revolution in the Kingston Stockade Local, State, and National Historic District. Whereas on April 3rd, 2025, the Historic Landmarks Preservation Commission, aka the HLPC, denied the application by S. Gundel, Wiltwyck, NSDAR Regent for a certificate of appropriateness, hereafter referred to as a COA, in accordance with the City of Kingston Form-Based Code, hereafter the Code, for proposed replacement of all windows with historically accurate replacements. And whereas on April 9th, 2025, J. Bacon Esquire, the Wilkwick NSDAR's attorney, after receiving the COA denial, submitted a hardship appeal application letter referencing the former landmark section of the code. The former landmark section of the code. Okay. Whereas on April 29th, 2025, an amended hardship appeal application letter was submitted citing the correct version of the code and requesting the HLPC make a decision on the application without further delay.
Kevin,
Yeah.
you skipped a paragraph.
Oh, whereas staff accepted the communication for the May agenda and on April 22nd, 2025, informed Mr. Bacon of the correct code, recommending resubmittal. And whereas on April 29th, an amended hardship appeal application letter was submitted citing the correct version of the code and requesting the HLPC make a decision on the application without further delay on May 1st, 2025. Whereas the applicant did not demonstrate that they followed Section 405.26L-12B3 of the code, requiring the applicant, quote, consult in good faith with the HLPC, local preservation groups, and interested parties in a diligent effort to seek an alternative that would result in preservation of the property. And whereas the HLPC reviewed the project's plethora of documents and determined that under Section 405.26L.12B.1, a public hearing is not required to pass a resolution issuing a decision on the hardship appeal. Whereas the HLPC reviewed the hardship appeal letters submitted by the applicant's attorney, the documents from April 3rd, 2025, the HLPC meeting, and other relevant documents in accordance with the following four statutory criteria listed under Section 405.26L.12 of the zoning code. 1, the hardship shall not be self-inflicted. 2, the property is incapable of earning a reasonable return, regardless of whether that return represents the most profitable return possible. 3, the property cannot be adapted for any other use, whether by the current owner or by a purchaser, which would result in a reasonable return, and efforts to find a purchaser interested in acquiring the property and preserving it have failed. Whereas the HLPC finds that criteria 1 of Section 405.26L.12 is applicable to the hardship appeal, and the following documents submitted by the applicant and supplemented by the HLPC constitute a timeline of critical communications with and actions by Wilkwick and SDAR demonstrating the applicants possess ample information of review requirements, work limitations, appropriate treatments to designated historic properties, funding opportunities available for restoration work, and other resources, and still intentionally expended funds prior to the Commission's decision. 1, 1969, August 28th, HLPC minutes. See pages 1 to 3. 1969, September 8th, 106-122 Green Street, HLPC designation. Number 3, 1979, February 5th, Pearl J. Ripper, regent of the Wilkwick chapter of the NSDAR, enters into an agreement with Kingston's HLPC for the installation of an HLPC local landmark plaque at 106-122 Green Street. 4, 1990, October 1, Joyce Wirt, representative of the Wilkwick chapter NSDAR, applied to HLPC to install new signage. Number 5, 1990, November 3rd, HLPC sent an approval letter to the DAR for their signage application. 6, 2008, July 15th, Esther Aldridge, Wiltwyck Chapter NSDAR representative applied for HLPC review for their proposed fencing project. Number 7, 2021, March 31st, email from Sue Cahill to Patsy Dorban, former Wiltwyck NSDAR regent, notifying her that the structure are designated historic and that HLPC and HAC review are required for exterior work to 106-122 Green Street. 8, 2022, March 10th, 106-122 Green Street, proposed Marvin windows for installation. See page is 1 to 6. 2022, April 20th. This is number 9. 106-122 Green Street, DAR and SHPO email. See pages 3 to 5. Note, prices were redacted by the applicant prior to this document's submission to the HLPC. Number 10, 2022, May 26th, SHPO letter regarding 106-122 Green Street, see page 2. 2023, December 20th, 106-122 Green Street, affidavit by Karen Davis, see pages 3 and 4. Whereas, in its review of Criterion 1, the HLPC also finds in the December 20th, 2023 affidavit by Karen Davis that the Wiltwyck NSDAR received a $60,000 to $75,000 restoration quote in 2021, but the organization then intentionally purchased modern windows for $60,000 without the required HLPC approvals in March of 2022, and that the following grant opportunities to fund restoration could have prevented the alleged hardship. Grant opportunity, this will be number 1, NSDAR historic grant preservations, that's from the Daughters of the Revolution. Maximum amount is $10,000. Potential project cost reduction from this grant, if the owner applied and received this opportunity for restoring all wood windows, then the project could have cost them between $50,000 to $65,000. That would have been a $10,000 savings. That's the gist of this table I'm reading through. It'll show you how much the savings is. That's a side note, not part of the resolution. Preservation League of New York State Opportunity Fund, Preservation Opportunity Fund, $10,000 to $40,000. If the owner applied and received this opportunity for restoring all wooden windows, and the project could have cost them each a load of $20,000 to $25,000 and a high of $50,000 to $65,000. The third grant opportunity we have listed here is New York State EPF grant program for parks, preservation, and heritage. This covers 50% of all qualifying project costs. If the owner applied and received this opportunity for restoring all wood windows, and the project could have cost them between $30,000 to $37,500. $30,000 to $37,500. Whereas the HLPC finds that based upon this information, the alleged hardship the applicant is claiming is self-inflicted. Whereas the HLPC finds that the applicant has not submitted any information or records which would establish the criterion number 2 of section 405.26L.12a, nor has the applicant provided any argument pertaining to a reasonable return or impact of the denial of the COA on the value of the property. The applicant merely states that this criteria is not applicable to the hardship appeal. And whereas the HLPC finds that the applicant has not submitted any information or records which would establish criteria 3 of section 405.26L.12a, nor has the applicant provided any argument pertaining to the effect the denial of the COA has on the use of the property, or whether any use may have a reasonable return. The applicants merely state they are not looking for a reasonable bold return, only looking to replace the windows with replicas. And whereas the HLPC finds that the applicant has not submitted any information or records which would establish criterion 4 of section 405.26L.12a, and again merely states the criteria is not applicable to this hardship appeal. And whereas the HLPC finds that the proposed action is considered a type 2 action under SECRA 6 NYCRR Part 617.5 C1 and 2, and is predetermined not to have a significant impact on the environment and is precluded from environmental review under the Environmental Conservation Law, Article 8. Now therefore be it resolved by the Historic Landmarks Preservation Commission of the City of Kingston as follows. Section 1, based on the combination of documentary, visual, and documentary evidence sourced by the HLPC to supplement the applicant's documents, the HLPC finds that the alleged hardship is self-inflicted by willful actions and lack thereof of the Willful chapter of the NSDAR, and that the applicant failed to establish any of the criteria required to prove the existence of a hardship as required by section 405.26L12A. Section 2. Based on the finding of the alleged hardship is self-inflicted, and if the applicant failed to establish the statutory criteria for proving the existence of a hardship pursuant to section 405. This says 25, I think it's supposed to say 26.
Yes, correct.
Pursuant to section 405.26LA, the HLPC denies the hardship application. Section 3, the April 3rd, 2025 certificate of appropriateness denying the replacement of all windows with historically accurate replacements shall remain in effect for 1 year. And then it says section 7.
Section 4.
This resolution shall take effect immediately. Now, one thing I was gonna bring out was in the code, there was under hardship, section 405.26L15 is the appeal procedure, and that references in error 45.26L11 instead of 12. Okay, that should, the code should state 12, not 11. And if we go back into section 12 of same, we're going to see that that references section 405.26L14, when in fact the appeal is under 15. So something happened with the numbering on this. It's not fatal, I've explained it, and move on. Do we have a second on this motion?
Second.
Robert?
The fact that you knew those sections, I'm impressed.
Well,
Just saying.
we'll cover that later. I think we'll proceed with the taking the roll on this one. Robert?
Aye.
Aye, Andrea.
Aye, Eddie.
I'm also a affirmative vote on this. That's it.
We're good. Motion carried. So there's 2 documents going around. One is the cover and one is the resolution, so please sign both of them. And I will look at those guys back.
I think we noticed that when we're during the review.
I go through code sections all day long for my job, and I just can't remember. Save my life, so.
Sometimes like in Word, it'll just reference it. Yeah, it'll jump, because it thinks it's doing it in consecutive order and you don't want it to do.
Exactly.
So I don't. And then you have to try to figure out how to make it stop.
Yeah.
Make it stop.
So can, I've seen your work on Tuesday?
Yeah,
Is it, are you gonna be the whole 3 days of it? 2 days?
I'm gonna do Tuesday and Wednesday. Well, Thursday, I think I'm doing a site visit to the Poughkeepsie Underwear Factory. I've done that one with Hudson River Housing already. With, from a group of land trusts. We were looking at affordable housing projects that utilize the tax credits. So that's a tax credit. So it's worth checking out if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, I'm going for the first day, but. But they signed up. Who is it?
The first day is a CLG training. It's number 45.
Do I get credit?
What?
The CLG training in Poughkeepsie? Is
Okay.
that part of my floor?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Oh, that, yeah. All right. Thank you, thank you.
Know each other.
It's been fun. I tried to, sadly, we thought it was too hot, I tried to open the door to the roof, or to the tower, locked.
We get
Sad but true. Sad but true.
Out of your body.
All right, I think next on the list is 300 Wall Street.
Hi.
I remember you. If you would please give us a quick overview of what you're planning. Yeah, have a seat. Get comfy.
Feel free if you want to.
Thank you. Okay, well,
Yeah, give us your name and your affiliation.
Oh, okay, sure. Yes, I am not 300 Wall Street. Richard Heil-Merites, I'm the executive director of the Hudson Valley LGBTQ plus Community Center, which owns 300 Wall Street. This is basically the present condition of the building. Some of you, well, you're probably all aware that we were the test case for removing the awning, the Pike Place awnings. And so this is what we were left with. I'll start out by saying we did not choose the timing of this, and the communication with the city was not good to begin with. Reinforcing the structure occurred without any communication with us initially, and then we were told by a third party that demolition was going to occur. We did only meet with the mayor and came to an understanding about removing the awning and the timeline. I actually think that what our building could look like with the removal of the awning will more closely approximate what the architect's original intention was. Unlike other buildings in this district, this building was really built to be viewed vertically. It does not have a natural distinction between the first floor, which in most other buildings is a retail floor, and the upper floors. So what we are proposing, we looked at two options. We looked at potentially having the brick stripped, having the paint removed. Both the scope and the cost of that were well outside of our ability to take that on at this time or any time in the near future. I should also say that this was not a planned expense for us. This was something that was kind of foisted upon us. So then we looked at the alternative of painting the front of the building, painting the entire facade to unify the facade as opposed to what we see now, which is bisected. So this is what we have come up with really a couple of reasons for this. One is to really accentuate I think the architect's original intent, which is to really, for a small building, create a sense of height and of movement vertically. And we did look at a couple of different color schemes. This is the one that most people felt most comfortable with. One of these colors is not in the Benjamin Moore Historic Color Palette, but it seems the most appropriate. Also because we did not choose to have, this was not a planned expense for us, painting it, particularly the ground color, which I think is Benjamin Moore 1393 Grappa, allows us not to have to touch the side of the building because the purple trim on the detail between the second and third story windows, that continues on the John Street side of the building. And so in going with this scheme, we can avoid the expense of having work done on the John Street side of the building. I think that pretty much covers it. What has been done to date, I will say, is prep work for this. And by prep work, I mean the removal of all of the adhesive left over from the removal of the awning, patching of holes left in the masonry from metalwork that reinforced the awning. The stonework has also been stripped. Part of the stonework, this picture's a little bit small, but this part of this part of the stonework, which you can see just peeked up above the awning, that was all painted to kind of hide this kind of very haphazard arrangement of placing the awning in the middle of the stonework. So that has the paint has been stripped off of all of that, and it has been cleaned. And to the best of the ability, without being more intrusive or incurring more expense, to return it to more of closer to the condition it would have been before the awning was installed.
Okay. Now, I'm going to lean on you, I'm afraid, Andrea. Would this be considered Art Deco?
Oh, yeah, 1938.
Okay, so they're pretty rare in Kingston. And I don't have a sense for how far from an Art Deco color scheme this shifts. And I mean, I know more vibrant colors. I think Art Deco, I think Miami. But
It certainly depends on the location. The majority of Art Deco styles that I've seen as far as color palettes are like a moody with a pop of color. And we very much have the pop of color, and it very much applies to the function within the building, I think, as well. Can you go back to the proposed color scheme, Ethan? Please. I think it actually kind of covers both of what I've just previously described as somewhat moody with a pop of color. I prefer the multicolor scheme over the singular color scheme as is present, but to 300 Wall Street's credit, they couldn't do a whole lot with it when the building was truncated. So
yeah.
I mean, I would be interested in exploring maybe a different shade for the dark purple. I don't mind the pilasters being the lighter purple and the historical color for the center of the pilaster. If maybe the darker purple would maybe match more of the brick color itself, knowing that you don't want to clean the brick, understood there, and the brick is already painted. So the remaining portion of brick that's below that was untreated previously, it's not a whole lot of extra remaining. So I don't know how the board feels about the rest of that, but.
Okay. And the color of the figurines on top of the vertical columns, is that a blue or is that what's already there?
No, they appear to be unpainted, like they never got painted. They appear somewhat different color than the stonework around the door. I don't know if it's the same material or not. If it's just weathered differently, it's really unclear to me. But those are
going to be left natural.
Yeah, they don't appear that they've ever been painted, and we're not proposing to paint them.
Okay, so that's just to show shadowing.
Where exactly do you
It's
mean?
kind of a bluish tint.
Oh, yeah, it's just that, yeah, that's what they are. They appear a little bit whiter than that. I think it's just the
way it's weathered.
Well, or it's the camera.
We do have an older photo.
Yeah, let's see what the
Yeah.
back in the day picture.
think one of the best ones.
I think, yeah.
Well, we don't know what color. It's brick.
Well, it's brick.
Yeah.
And they painted over,
It's very clear, there is, there are photographs of that show just a bit of our building as the pipe plant awnings are being installed and the brick is unpainted. There is a photograph soon after, and the upper 2 stories are painted. And as you probably know, that is the case for every building down that side of the block,
Right.
except for the one on the farthest corner, the northern corner.
This shows something, there is in the brick a vertical line of brick,
Mhm.
right? Is
Nibble
that,
that cone.
is that a feature you would want to call out with painting, or do you want to just let it blend in?
We could, I suppose. What we're proposing is not to do that. Was trying to really balance the fact that this is an Art Deco building and distinct from other buildings in the district, certainly as a result of that, and not make it too fussy.
I tend to agree with you. I don't think it's a relief line in shadow. I think it's flush.
It's not
Right.
another reveal.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Okay, and
much
it's
as the
already
same-
been painted,
Yeah.
2/3 of it have already been painted, that's correct. Yeah.
Probably leave it.
okay.
If, again, at the proposed color, being that sort of cream that goes straight up.
And also the very brickwork at the top, is that something that you would want to call out or just leave plain?
I think at this time we cannot, again, I have to say, this was not an expense that we expected to take on. The city has, the mayor's office has proposed a certain scheme of paying for this. It does not cover the cost of this. This is coming out of our reserves.
Got it. All right. Let's see. Are there any other questions from other members of the board? Also, a quick question on the age of applicability. I know for the stockade has been extended to 1960. Is anyone aware of purple being a historic color from that era, like 50s and 60s?
I don't know colors.
Nor am I. I used to lean on Alan Baer for a lot of this, who was quite knowledgeable. I mean, I get the idea of the pop of color, and this may be as close as we can ask. I don't know what tones you're thinking of for the darker.
I would say maybe something that's closer to the present brick. So you don't have to clean brick then, but
I still think the brick would need to be cleaned. We also have a situation where we would have brick on the lower story, which has been, although covered by the awning, has been open to the elements, where we have now 50 years, 55 years almost, or at least 50 years of brick that has been painted over. I think trying to get all of that to something uniform at some point is going to be a very expensive job and very difficult.
let me rephrase what I meant. Perform cleaning, I guess what I meant was not, instead of having to remove paint from the upper half. Again, could you actually propose for me, please? Where you have the darker brick on the flanking sides and that little bit in the middle above the windows. If all of that was a darker red, comparable to the existing brick, and then the pilasters with the light purple and the cream, those could be painted as you have them presented.
I frankly don't think that would look very good. And it's, I think to try to match red brick with red paint, that's really difficult.
But, no, Michael, the darker purple on the bottom
That is,
is darker, or is it just a shadow?
it's just the shadow
Oh,
because this
okay.
is unpainted brick and that is
Gotcha.
painted like purple,
Gotcha.
lavender.
So it would be the same.
Yeah.
Oh, right, I hadn't noticed that.
I'm sorry, it was like,
No,
think
This was
it's just
difficult
trying
enough
do
to
this
get
circulation
close to the
over a
colors
photo
as
that
it
has existing paint on
Right.
the top and brick on the
Do
bottom.
we have swatches of color?
No, it's not bad.
I don't know.
I don't have physical.
No, we don't have
Yeah.
physical.
All right. All right, so this is, I should envision this sort of darker tone, you think?
Richard, how does the proposed color, is that the same that's currently on the front, or is
Yes.
that the same that's on the?
It is
trim?
one, in the Benjamin Moore kind of paint palette, it's one shade off.
Darker?
Yeah, it's a little bit darker. When we kind of put this up, this seemed a little bit too vibrant, like having that dark purple. It just seemed, we went for something that was just a little bit more muted, had more gray in it.
So, this trim feature here on this, on the John Street side, is that more matching the dark color that
It
you're
is.
proposing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Right. And the treatment of the doorway. It sounds like it's just been a matter of getting it back to what it was
Yeah,
before.
we don't intend to repaint it.
Okay.
You know, I think it was just painted again to make that odd upper part disappear.
Got it. Any further questions? Well, what do folks think? It's a huge improvement over what we're looking at now.
I agree.
And I agree that the vertical treatment is much closer to its era than, and that's a rare era to have uptown. We don't have a lot of Art Deco to compare with or contrast with. And also, I am really glad you're not planning on touching the John Street side.
No, we are meeting, next week I am meeting with folks from the Preservation League who are interested in working with us to begin the process of first a historic structures report, then a building plan. We've also met with Mass Design in Poughkeepsie. They're also interested in working with us. So we are trying to think longer term, but we're not going to be able, barring some miracle, we're not going to be able to address stripping the brickwork on the front of the building for some years.
All right, so, it already having been painted, we need to address the strange bifurcation caused by the removal of the canopies. All right. Further discussion, questions? Any other open issues? I can't see anything, we're
Just-
leaving.
It looks like there was some overspray last time they did it, maybe be a little more careful this time. On the John Street side,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
It does look, I don't know if that's actually the case, but
Well, it looks like
it does look like it, you're right.
all right. Would someone else like to read the proposed?
You seek her first.
All right, I will entertain a motion to declare this a type 2 action under secret.
so moved, Robert.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
also.
We'll give it to Eric.
Nice try. Well done, gentlemen. So good. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Kevin?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Nettie?
Aye.
I also say yes.
Okay.
And I will delegate the responsibility for reading this one aloud. Anyone?
Andrew?
Would someone like to make the motion or shall I?
That will do it.
Thank you.
Start right.
Yep,
Okay. This is a motion that the commissioners present.
present.
The commissioners present, right?
Present.
Find as fact that the proposed facade repainting project at 300 Wall Street, parentheses, EHV LGBTQ Center, end parentheses, in the Kingston Stockade Local, State, and National Historic District, if done according to the plans reviewed, the discussions had, and the procedures stipulated in section 405-26L of Kingston's zoning code is compatible with the historic character of the district for the following reasons. Pursuant to sections 405.26.L.11 and 405.26.L.13A, the commission determines the application and its supporting materials are complete for formal review, and that the proposed work requires a certificate of appropriateness. The proposed work is to take place at the 3-story Art Deco inspired tapestry brick corner building with wooden recessed panels and vertical oriented buttresses and colonial urn features at the northeast corner of the intersection of Wall and John Streets. Constructed in 1938 as a new facility for the National Ulster County Bank, which occupied the site since 1915, and which rebuilt or modified the facade to the Art Deco design, parentheses 1978, BSIF, and parentheses, and which has served as Hudson Valley LGBTQ Center since about 2007. 300 Wall Street was previously reviewed and approved by the HLPC for repainting the facade in its current colors in December of 2022. Then in the fall of 2024, the uptown canopy affixed to 300 Wall Street was removed by the city due to structural issues, which resulted in the need to repaint only the Wall Street portion of the facade to portray a more cohesive design scheme. The applicant may clean the facade in a manner sensitive to the historic masonry, parentheses, see NPS press brief number 1, which gives a long email, or just the,
The web
citation, yeah. Prior to painting the facade, that any exposed masonry must be treated to prevent staining prior to the application of paint. That the John Street facade shall remain unpainted. Repainting the facade shall follow the mock-up provided to the HLPC Benjamin Moore 1393 grappa, the body color, BM 1383 Iris Bliss, the mid-level reveal, and BM HC-45 Shaker Beige, trim work and pilasters. Any further changes or additions to the plans and/or work specifically described and outlined in the submitted application are subject to further review by our commission prior to work start. The commissioner's approval does not obviate the need for a building permit from the Building Safety Division or any other required approvals from relevant coordinating agencies. Based on the preceding findings of fact, I move that on the first day of May 2025, the commission grant a certificate of appropriateness to the above referenced applicant for the work as described herein and in its application to the commission. Such notice is subject to the conditions contained in the foregoing motion and is valid for 1 year from this date.
All right, do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Eric. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Kevin?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Andrea?
Nay.
Nettie?
Aye.
I also vote yes.
Okay, there we go.
Ah, well, you did.
Thank you.
Practice. Obvious, yeah. Moving next to 110 Fair Street.
Okay, this one, they could not be present this evening.
Oh,
So they have requested it to be tabled and to be,
taken up in June.
taken up in the week.
All right, I don't think we have to
Just
have
make-
any.
You do a motion to table.
All right.
Yes.
I move that we table consideration of 110 Fair Street at the request of the owner. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Robert, thank you, Robert. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Kevin? Aaron,
Aye.
Robert,
Hi.
Andrea,
Aye.
Nettie.
Aye.
I also vote yes. Moving along, therefore, to 97 Fair Street. Hi. If you would have a seat. Yes. Introduce yourself and give us a quick overview of the plan.
All right. Hello, everyone.
Evening, your name please.
My name is Flo Batman. I'm the owner of 97 Park Street.
Right, and what is your plan?
Our home needs a new paint job, and we basically want to keep the style of the home the same, but modernize the colors a tiny little bit. Currently, the facade is a white, and the shutters are sort of a grayish blue. And the door, in fact, currently has no color. It's been stripped at some point. I don't know, maybe a previous owner did that. And we would like to basically keep the style of the home the same. We want to keep the facade white, painted with white with the Benjamin Moore white dove, and give the shutters a slightly stronger blue. There's still some gray in it. It's not as gray as it currently is. We would paint it with Stratford blue, also Benjamin Moore. And then we're thinking for the door a nice Bordeaux. Bottle of Bordeaux, very fancy name for that.
I was curious if you intend to repaint the railings and perhaps the front fence. I'm not sure exactly what other details might be visible from the street.
No, the railing is gonna stay the same, and it's just the house. Shutters.
Is the
and
chimney
the door.
being repainted? Is the chimney being painted in your proposal, or is it gonna be, is it currently?
No, it's currently that color,
Okay,
and we're not repainting it.
okay,
If anything, down the line, that might have to be repointed.
Okay.
What color's the roof? I forget.
The roof is a green. It's a metal roof that has probably been done about 10, 15 years ago. And the garage in the back, we will paint as well, same color, that white.
I'd like to see the old home pictures. Shutters could be green.
So the windowsills have been painted a long time.
Yeah, that's a surprise to me. Are you planning on maintaining the pattern of painting the windowsills to match the body?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Currently, it's all one color white, and we'll keep it one color white. Yes.
Okay.
Like I said, we love the look of the house. It needs painting, and
And
We want to
it's
keep it the same
probably
as it is.
faded from some of the original color in any event.
yes,
And
I actually don't really know exactly when.
do you want to do anything separate to other trim? Let's see, what was the question? The white dove? That's the, I'm not sure, just around the window, is there other trim that you wanted to use that as a bit of an accent color?
Well, so currently the windows are aluminum and they are white, and we'll keep that as it is, obviously. And then the rest is all basically currently the same color white, and we'll keep it as is.
All right. Any additional questions from members of the board? Okay. I'll read this one.
Seeker first.
I will be happy to. I'll show you how to do the other.
Take notes.
I'll entertain a motion that we declare this a type 2 action under seeker.
Motion?
Thank you kindly. Do I hear a second?
And
Okay, yay.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Kevin?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Robert? Andrea?
Aye.
Nettie?
Aye.
I also vote yes. Okay. Thank you. I hereby move that our commission president find as fact that the proposed facade repainting project at 97 Fair Street in the First Street Local Historic District, if done according to the plans reviewed, the discussions had, and the procedures stipulated in section 405-26L of Kingston zoning code, is compatible with the historic character of the district for the following reasons. Pursuant to section 405-26L11 and L13A, the commission has determined the application and its supporting materials are complete for formal review, and that the proposed work requires a certificate of appropriateness. The proposed work is to take place at the 2.5-story painted brick Greek Revival dwelling located on the west side of Fair Street, one parcel north of the intersection with Fair and Henry Streets, that does not appear on the Beers map of Rundown, Kingston, and Wilbur of 1870, but does appear on the Sanborn Fire Insurance map of 1887. The applicant shall repaint the structure using new colors that are not drawn from historic color collection, and according to the paint scheme reviewed by the HLPC, Benjamin Moore, OC 17, White Dove Body, VM 831 Stratford Blue Shutters, and VM 1357 Bottle of Bordeaux front door. Any future changes or additions to the plans or work specifically described and outlined in the submitted application are subject to further review by our commission prior to that work's start. The commission's approval does not obviate the need for a building permit from the Building Safety Division or any other required approvals from relevant coordinating agencies. Based on the preceding findings of fact, I move that on this first day of May 2025, our commission grant a certificate of appropriateness to the above referenced applicant for the work as described herein and in his application to the commission. Such notice is subject to the conditions contained in the foregoing motion and is valid for 1 year from this date. Do I hear a second?
Second, Robert.
Thank you, Robert. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Kevin?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Nettie?
Aye.
I also agree. All right.
Let's do it. You don't know?
That's it. For now.
I was like, wait, what?
Wait, there's more. And now for a dramatic reading of the zoning code. Yikes. All right, then we're up to individual landmark and landmark district applications. All right, thank you, Connie.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Happy painting. All right. So in 2024, we had 2 new individual landmarks and 1 landmark district in Wilbur. Yeah, I remember that our last one was 107 Henry Street in December of 20. Wow, I have been at this a long time. There are other possibilities that we have been thinking about on and off for decades. Pankaki is the one we've gotten the furthest into exploring, but do folks have other specific landmarks or districts that we would like to point the city toward?
Well, this is really what Ethan has done to make the process a little bit more formalized and straightforward for individual property owners that are looking to do this. we created an application. So it's really, this is an application that we're asking the commission to approve, that will be used by property owners to submit their request to this commission for local landmark designation. So he's looked at other communities that are within New York State, and kind of pulled this together. And I think it's a very well thought out. I think it's pretty straightforward. It goes through all the, information and background documentation that would be needed, so that it makes it clear to an applicant or to any property owner what you need to provide to this commission in order for us to support your request for local designation, and then move it on to the council for full. So that's really what this is right here.
Right off the bat, what pops out at me is the property eligible for the National Register? And I think your average homeowner will be a bit overwhelmed if they start wandering through those regulations. Should that maybe be lowered down in the form so as to not stump them right off the bat? And they could just, you're right, just say undetermined and move on. It's most likely, very few people will know those standards.
Yeah, one thought that we had in crafting this was that if they do take that extra step to look and they determine that it is eligible, like looking on Chris, or that it is listed, the already prepared documents would make this a very easy form for them to fill out. So it's kind of like a pre-form.
All right, I was looking at that quite differently. Okay, that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how much of the city
And I
is.
think most people that are gonna look to do this
Probably not.
already have invested some time
Mm.
and research into their property, and, it's not just something, let me go file something. You've really spent some time getting to understand and research and, what the history and
Okay, that's
significance of your property is.
And this is a particularly useful form in a situation like we had earlier this year when we had Down Street property come before us in 80 Washington. In addition to them going for state national, we can then, open the dialogue and provide them with this, and it would make a very streamlined process to get it, locally designated.
Okay.
The whole thing earlier this afternoon, I thought it was very clear, very easy thing to go through, so I didn't really see anything that I jumped out.
And this will go up on to the new portal for the landmarks, as it'll be done that way as well. So,
And does it come to us first? Where does it go from completion of the form? They upload
well,
it
if you
to.
accept the form, then we'll put the form on the portal, so it'll have to be configured to, work within that system, but it'll be configured so that you'll go in there, same as you do an application. You'll put information in. Some of it will then self-generate or propagate based on what the question was, and then it'll allow you to go through the different sections and different components, like if you, you'll be able to, it'll be streamlined that way. So there'll be paper copies for people that want to do it that way, but we're gonna obviously encourage people to use
I was
the
gonna say,
online.
you did all this hard work and it's not even gonna be seen.
No, there's still people out there that prefer paper fashion way.
Having just come back from my surgery, yeah, paper, I needed it. So I can understand that. So, all right, I'm trying to read it quickly and I haven't seen any misspellings or grammatical anything. And this last page is regarding districts.
This would just be like a supplemental page in the event they exceed
There's not
the
enough
period and statement of significance space.
Okay.
It's just extra space. So online, that will just be an open text box that you go down.
Okay.
And similarly here, there
Yeah.
could be a number of different sources, so we want to give them extra space.
Right, if they went to Friends of Historic Kingston, found the old architecture, all that. All right.
So
I think
what we
it-
really just need is you guys to just authorize it, approve it, and we'll be moving it on forward.
All right, do I have to make this a type 2 action under secret?
Yeah.
I thought so. All right, I will entertain a motion that we declare this a type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act.
So moved.
Thank you, Andrea. Do I hear a second? Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call the roll. Kevin,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Robert,
Aye.
Andrea,
Aye.
Nettie.
Aye.
I also agree. All right.
Do we still have a stockpile of plaques?
We do.
I know Mark inherited some that he carried around for a while.
Yeah, they are heavy.
Back of the car.
No, George Hutton left
If
them
you
on the
know
front porch.
anybody who doesn't have one that is a local landmark, yeah, we'd love to, yeah, get rid of, I mean, there's, yeah. We're just sitting, it's kind of,
One is earmarked for UPAC though.
Okay, I might have to apply.
Ooh.
okay.
All right.
Well, so we make a motion to approve the form.
I so move that we approve the form as submitted. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Nettie. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Kevin,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Robert,
Aye.
Andrea,
Hi,
Nettie.
Aye.
I also say yes.
thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work on that. All right. Any further discussions? I have one weird one. What formerly was known as Old Savannah
Yeah.
is now Cornell and has a fascinating, but oh my God, gigundous sign
Yeah.
that we have not said boo on. Did they come to you guys
It
for
was
desk
a,
review?
yeah, it was a desk review. And it
Uh-huh.
meets the code.
That's what they did with the parking in the front. They eliminated that parking, in like a little patio.
Right.
I like that.
Yeah,
That's the one thing I like.
they actually did that for safety reasons.
Of course you are.
But it's nice, I like
Yeah.
it.
It looks
Yeah.
fantastic.
All right, I was curious. This is yours. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Robert.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
I will ask for acclamation for adjournment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimity is a wonderful thing. Yay!
It's my shortest meeting.
So far.